Some people vanish into the streets and are never seen again. Others are found in ways no one expects. For 30 years, Jack O'Reilly was just another face in the crowd, a homeless man surviving on the fringes of California, his past a mystery even to himself. Then, in one shocking moment, everything changed. When the police approached him, he assumed it was another warning to move along. Instead, they handed him the truth. He wasn't who he thought he was. His real name was Jonathan Michael Hartwell, the kidnapped heir to a tech empire, stolen as a baby and lost to the world. Now, after a lifetime of hardship, he was about to reclaim a destiny that should have been his all along. But the past doesn't surrender easily, and some secrets are worth killing for. Over the course of 30 years, Jack O'Reilly had been a ghost, a shadow that moved through the neon-lit alleyways and sun-scorched sidewalks of California. Even more accurately, his name was not Jack at all. It was nothing more than a piece of information that he had acquired along the road, a symbolic representation of a guy who had long since forgotten who he was. After that, on a night when it was pouring rain, Sheriff Daniel Carter entered his life. When the sheriff addressed Jack, his voice was calm but carried an unreadable weight. "Jack," he said, "I need you to come with me." Jack felt his heart palpitating. The police have spoken with him in the past, providing him with warnings to move along and periodic welfare checks, but never in this manner. There was a mixture of compassion, a sense of urgency, and maybe even wonder in Carter's gaze. The next thing that happened was a discovery that would untangle the complex web of Jack's troubled background. It wasn't always the case that Jack was without a home. Once upon a time, he was known as Jonathan Everett, the cherished adopted son of Margaret and Robert Everett, an affluent family from San Francisco. With luxury schools, piano lessons, and summers spent in Napa Valley, his upbringing had been nothing short of a dream. He was a child prodigy, a little lad with a voice that sounded like molten gold, and he was the frontman of a local band that performed at Underground, locations that were completely sold out. On the other hand, his adopted siblings, Lucas and Diane, harbored resentment against him behind closed doors. "You don't belong here," they would murmur to one another. "You're not one of us." As the remarks continued to fester, they tainted his sense of home. One evening, after a fierce altercation, Jack, who was 17 years old, walked out and did not come back home. Over the course of 30 years, he roamed aimlessly, his memories becoming muddled in the haze of survival. Sheriff Carter took Jack to a precinct office that was quite quiet. On the table was a thick file that had yellowed as it approached the edges. "There was more to your birth name than merely Jonathan Everett," Carter said in a quiet voice. It was Jonathan Michael Hartwell. Before the sheriff brought before an old newspaper piece, Jack had no idea what the term signified. Infant son of tech mogul abducted in 1975, $10 million ransom, never paid. It seemed as if Jack's blood had frozen. According to the information provided in the report, Michael Hartwell, the heir to the Hartwell Microchips Company, had been taken from his cradle when he was 9 months old. The kidnappers had demanded a staggering sum of money, but the family refused to pay because they believed that doing so would put him in much greater risk. The case was never solved until now. Jack was found to be a 98.7% match to the Hartwells according to a recent DNA test that was conducted with the intention of identifying John Doe's. Throughout their hunt, the Hartwells had never given up. Eleanor, Michael's mother, had spent decades supporting private investigations, while Richard, Michael's father, buried his sorrow in work before dying of a heart attack in 1992. Michael's mother had spent decades funding private investigations. However, Eleanor was very much alive. At the same time, she had been searching for him each and every day. It was like looking into a mirror when I first saw Eleanor. We both had the same piercing blue eyes and the same resolute jaw. As she clung to his face and said, "My baby, my miracle," she broke down in tears. However, the reality was far murkier than anybody had anticipated. Jack had not only been taken captive, but he had also been sold. He was adopted by the Everett family, who had been looking for a kid for a very long time. An unscrupulous attorney put them in contact with a clandestine adoption arrangement. The only thing they were aware of was that he was missing and needed a place to live. Both Diane and Lucas, they were aware of it. It wasn't simply envy that drove them to hate. It was also guilt. Now Jack, who was Michael, was at a fork in the path. Even his original family wished for him to return. He was the owner of the Hartwell wealth. What about the Everetts? Despite the fact that their hands were dirty, they had not stopped loving him. And then there was Diane, who went in search of him as tears were streaming down her face. As she begged, "I was just a kid," she said. "I was unable to comprehend. Sorry, I'm very sorry." Was he able to forgive? Were he able to begin again? Only one thing was certain. Jack O'Reilly had left the building. Jonathan Michael Hartwell, what about you? The beginning of his tale had just begun. The next year, a new technology firm called Second Chances came into being. This foundation assists homeless people in reuniting with their family. When he cut the ribbon, the company's chief executive officer, a golden-haired guy who kept a guitar always at hand, grinned. Someone referred to it as a miracle. Jack has just asserted that it is fair. As Jonathan Michael Hartwell began to adjust to his new existence, which included reestablishing contact with his birth mother, Eleanor, and becoming aware of the immense empire to which he was now the heir, he was unable to escape the sensation that something was incorrect. As a result of the cutting-edge microprocessor technology that was available in the 1970s and 1980 seconds, the Hartwell wealth was enormous. Vast prosperity, however, was accompanied with vast darkness. While Jonathan was going through old family records one evening, he came across a series of encrypted messages that were sent between his late father, Richard, and a person who is only referred to as the benefactor. If the truth about the boy gets out, everything collapses. According to a particular message. What is the truth? And then Victor Cray appeared. An elegant gentleman with silver hair and a fitted suit made an appearance at Jonathan's charity event. He was observing him from the other side of the room with eyes that were icy and calculating. As Jonathan approached him, Victor smiled, displaying a demeanor that was on the border of being courteous. Victor said, "You have a striking resemblance to your father. A shame Richard never got to see the man you became." Victor thrust an antique pocket watch into his hand before Jonathan could come up with a response. It was the identical pocket watch that was featured in the old abduction news articles. "Hello, Michael, and welcome back. I hope we can chat soon." Following then, he disappeared among the throng. During the course of his inquiry, Jonathan came to a startling realization. The Hartwells had not only been kidnapped, they were the intended adversary. As a result of the innovative nature of Richard Hartwell's microchip innovations, a competing technology consortium known as Cray Industries had arranged for Jonathan's kidnapping in order to gain leverage. As a result of Richard's refusal to sign up his patents, they ended up selling the kid on the underground market, with the assumption that he would vanish forever. Nevertheless, Victor Cray had failed to account for two things. The Everetts fostered him without their knowledge. In the course of many decades, DNA technology revealed the truth. Now, Jonathan was not just an heir who had been recovered. He was also a danger. His adopted sister, Diane Everett, surfaced once again, and this time she had a confession with her. She confessed, I knew, while shaking with fear. Not at first, but in the future. On his father's desk, Lucas discovered several paperwork. We were apprehensive. Everyone would be sent to jail if they discovered that we were having you. It caused Jonathan's gut to twist. Did any of his own siblings assist in covering up the truth? Then the shocking revelation arrived. Diane hushed. Lucas didn't just hate you. He was paid to keep you away, as she leaned in close to listen. Someone was watching us all these years. The action was taken by Victor Cray. Jonathan was suddenly confronted with an ambush outside of his apartment on a cloudy night in San Francisco. A group of individuals dressed in black coerced him into entering a vehicle, but not before he was able to transmit a signal of concern to Sheriff Carter. When the vehicle came to a halt, Jonathan discovered that he was inside of a Hartwell semiconductor facility that had been abandoned, directly with Victor in person. The sneering voice of Victor said, "You're supposed to remain lost. Your father's haughtiness passed away along with him. You too will do so now." Nevertheless, Jonathan was not the same shattered guy who had been homeless for decades and wandering the streets. He resisted as well. It was a challenge. The sound of a gunshot, the howl of sirens that are getting closer. Despite the fact that Victor managed to flee, Jonathan was able to get a key from his pocket. The answer to every problem. The key led to a safety deposit box that contained Richard Hartwell's ultimate secret, which was a prototype of the next generation of artificial intelligence that had been buried to protect Cray Industries from discovering it. That had a value of billions. Furthermore, that was the reason why Jonathan had been taken away. Given that Victor was still in the world and that Jonathan was in charge of the Hartwell legacy, he was faced with a decision: continue to fade into obscurity, or climb to prominence as the heir that his father had always meant for him to be. 1 year later, Hartwell-Cray Dynamics was established. It was a merger that was compelled by the force of legal authority, and Jonathan was in charge of it. Who is Victor? He was deprived of his kingdom. The Second Chances program extended its network of homeless shelters throughout the country. As the anniversary of his homecoming approached, Jonathan found himself finally at peace as he stood at the grave of his father. Then his phone began to buzz. It is a message from a number that is unknown. "Michael, and you have emerged victorious." However, the conflict is not yet done. A picture of a little child who had blue eyes much like his own was included in the attachment.